We're live.
Yes, yes. Welcome in to the Tim McKernan Show podcast. Questions from the audience from HomeLoanExpert.com studios. Timothy Michael McKernan, Action Jackson with you on QFTA. New day here on Wednesdays as we are doing interviews. Once again, Joe Buck, our guest this week. If you haven't seen that one, you can watch that on YouTube or listen to it on the Tim McKernan Show podcast. And a very special guest on QFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, Jennings Randolph Jr. The people love Jennings Randolph Jr. What's up, Jennings? Jennings, nurse? Has anybody seen my nurse, Jackson?
I think
A nurse.
I gotta hit my thing. Hold on. I told Jackson I gotta get my brand. I'm trying to get my brand better. So I gotta hit my thing. So I
like this.
I posted. Hold on, Jackson. All right. Now we're good. Jeez.
Now we're good.
All right. How you boys doing?
What's the good word? I see the Sullivan Golf Course flag over your head.
Flying proud.
I was texting with you. Well, first off, why don't we talk about it right here?
Yeah.
We've been emailing about the Fan Pin Club Championship.
Yeah.
Jackson, you better buckle up here, brother, because didn't you fold like a cheap tent last year?
Yeah, against Jakey, big mistake.
You don't want to fold against Jakey, big mistake. No, you don't play.
Jake don't play.
But we were emailing about it here this afternoon, actually. And then I'm like, we're going to be doing QFTA. So I wanted to talk about Mickelson. So I asked Jay to jump on, and he's kind enough to do it. But let's start with the Fan Pin Club Championship.
Right.
It's looking like Sunday, May 1st for the entire first round at Gateway National, like we did 2 years ago when Iggy had his own personal caddy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did. Anna. It was a special day. It worked out good where we did the one day. Anybody that's been in, whoever was in the last one will be invited first. We've got it down to kind of a science. Gateway loves having us, and they do a good job. And the golf course is going to be in good shape. And this is year number 6.
Is that right?
Yeah, 6. And
you won, Cletus won, Guy won, and Peg won, Todd Callahan won.
Yeah, 5 years, 5 different winners.
Yeah, how about that? So we will announce how to register and the whole thing. What I want to do is I want to coordinate. I want to try to do this thing with some video of matches, commentary, highlights. Not to say we'll have production crews, but people can just shoot it with their phones, just like I did for Iggy and Raby in their 3 series match last year, and try and do this thing up. When you get 64 listeners of the show together, I think we can do more with this and get it out there to the people. And so that's what we're looking forward to doing. I would imagine a lot of people will want to play, and I think it's going to be $125, and like 40 or so of that will go to the prize fund. So we're talking about like a $2,500 prize pool, if my math is not mistaken on that. So if you want to play, May 1st will be the day at Gateway National, $125, and then whatever the rate is for whenever you play your second round match, which will be on your own to set up. But Jay and Sean Barnes at Gateway have worked hard to set this up, and we will take it from here and hopefully get this thing organized and out to the people. Plus, Jennings, the Dotem. I've had more meetings on the Dotem in the last month than I think we had for the first 5 years of the event. And the people at Hubbard are excited about this. God, do I have the packet on me? I don't know if I have the packet on me. Oh, I do.
Yeah,
I do. Jackson, you were in the meeting. Can the people see this? Look at this.
Yeah. Remember the one we did a couple years ago? I don't.
Look at that. It's a whole thing. I mean, there's a whole packet on this thing.
As it should be. It's just going to grow now. And I think as long as we take care of the people that got in on the ground floor, I mean, I have a feeling both days are going to sell out. I have a feeling both days are going to sell out rather quick. I've even thought about maybe having worst case. I mean, if they both sell out silly fast, having a little Wednesday afternoon 9-hole deal at the Rock, and then going wherever the show's going to be with Lisa Ingham.
Wow.
I don't know.
Practice round to get a feel for how the greens are rolling.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
or
the
just to the people that haven't been able to get involved.
Yeah.
I mean,
I believe we will be opening up registration in around the start of April. That is the plan. But the title sponsorship and 2 secondary sponsorships are already sold on the event. And people are lining up. I mean, to have a room full of salespeople yesterday, how many people would you say were in that meeting, Jackson? I guess 15 to 20.
Yeah, I was going to say 15.
And Jennings, it was all built around the idea you concocted and pitched to me in 2016, which I said, I don't want to mess with it. If I think it's not going to go well, it's going to go well. And that's our lesson from that.
Again, it validates the community aspect of the listenership, their
Amen.
involvement with events and charities and golf and what we do and all that stuff. And bigger things are coming, so it's going to be an unbelievable couple of days. And I think the fan page will be good. I probably figure you play it if we play May 1st, which I think we're going to do.
Yeah.
Then you'll have your match will be done, and then those that move on will play May through August, I believe. Then you'll have another 30 days to play your next match.
So advance to a round of 32, and like I said, I like going out there and shooting video of it, and doing commentary. And I think there will be an opportunity to grow that and put that on the TMA YouTube channel where people can be watching this right now, and a chance for stardom, and potentially Jennings will launch somebody onto the Corn Ferry Tour.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
By winning the Fan Page Club Championship. All right, so we were BSing about that, and then I'm like, oh, Jackson and I are going to be doing QFTA anyway, and I was texting with Skip during Balloon Party today, but I have no idea where you are on what has taken place with Mickelson.
Right.
And certainly the last 24 hours have been substantial in the chapter. Sunday with Dustin Johnson and Bryson saying they're out.
Yeah.
And then that felt like that was the final domino, at least on the big time younger American players. And then last week, the Alan Shipnuck interview, which was done in November. I didn't realize that because you were in studio when I read that. And I was like, man, this seems substantial for it to just be kind of posted out of nowhere. But Alan Shipnuck, the way I tried to draw an analogy to it for the people on 101 this morning, and tell me if this is accurate, he's kind of like Ken Rosenthal for golf. He's a respected guy. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Ship is and he's writing a book.
Yes, on Mickelson.
On Mickelson.
Coming out in May.
Right.
So that's the background, and Mickelson reached out to him to do this interview in November. Now, when I read Mickelson's comments, I was like, man, that seems really just ballsy.
Sure.
Talking about these guys are some, if I'm not mistaken, he said these guys are some dangerous motherfuckers. I think is what he said. What's that?
Scary
motherfuckers. He said, yeah.
As it relates to the tour or the Saudis?
He's talking about the Saudis.
Okay.
And then he also said, yeah, they execute people for being gay.
Right.
And then he said, but this is our opportunity to finally get leverage on the tour. And what stood out to me is if you're really using something for leverage, unless he's playing on a like 6th level that I'm not aware of, it's usually not a great idea to broadcast that you're just using it for leverage. So the whole thing struck me as odd. And then he said in his statement on Tuesday, Jay, that he was off the record with Shipnuck. Shipnuck immediately came back over the top and said that's not the case. The only reason why I want to touch on that part of it is because the comments read like somebody who thought they were off the record. I'm not saying that he was or wasn't. My guess is either he's covering his ass or there was a misunderstanding, but Shipnuck is adamant that they were not off the record. So with all of that said, bringing people up to date, I can't wait to hear what you think of a guy who perhaps publicly had one of the highest approval ratings in the game and is persona non grata as we sit here on February 23rd, 2022 at this moment.
As it started to play out, I didn't understand why he was doing what he was doing. And you put two things together. A, he's doing it to try and make a true change for the tour and make some things which arguably you can say need to be changed. I hate hearing this more money for the top players. I'd rather see more money for development and stuff like that. I mean, come on, how greedy can you be? So either he was being genuine about trying to make changes, or this is a money grab. And if it's a money grab, why?
Right.
The guy could, if he wanted to, make money, real good money on the Champions Tour. That's if he wanted to be competitive golf-wise, that's where his dough lies. He could sit in a chair on Saturdays and Sundays and make a boatload of money. Why do and say the things that you have said unless there's something more? And then the statement where he really doesn't apologize to the PGA Tour, which he basically used the term strong arm tactics and coercion.
Yeah. I don't even think he mentioned the tour in the apology.
I don't think so. Now, he talked about players and sponsors and you know, this is either something that's just gone really wrong and you know, there were mistakes made along the way, or there's a real problem here. I mean, that's where I'm at now. That's speculation. But
well, I think people. Who's I listening to? I mean, I've consumed a bunch on this because I think this is a story for golf people. And I don't necessarily put myself in that category because you actually played it and covered it. I'm on the barnacle.
Don't sell yourself short.
but I'm following the story, and so I was aware of the Saudi Golf League thing, and I was
Right.
aware Norman was involved, and I was aware Mickelson was involved, and potentially a bunch of guys who either have done it or are on the precipice of superstardom like Bryson DeChambeau, but a lot of guys in their 40s.
Yep.
And they were going to go play for this Saudi Golf League. And so Mickelson and Norman were leading the charge. Dustin Johnson, Adam Scott, Ian Poulter, Henrik Stenson. If I didn't mention Bryson, any other names that you were familiar
Maybe
with?
Tommy Fleet. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing as we went along with the whole process. None of them, including Phil, were official. And the reason they weren't official, because they knew that the day that they said they were officially aligning and with the Saudi Golf League and playing in this and that, the tour's got them.
Yeah.
And the tour could ban them if they wanted
and that
to.
was the plan. The tour had been public that they would ban anybody who
Lifetime ban.
Right.
Lifetime.
So that this was an under the table thing. Now, a couple of developments on this thing. And again, I realize even for the people who are listening to the podcast, who may be watching live, and you're welcome to comment on it and interact with us. That's why we're doing it live on YouTube and Facebook. And
hey, young people don't smoke.
Jennings is enjoying a heater while we talk it over. Kramer Hickok, who's a player on tour who, if I'm not mistaken, went to like that 9-hole or 8-hole playoff with Harris English last year. That's right. And I think he was roommates with Speed. So it's not like he's a well-known guy, but he did an interview on a podcast last week. And he said the whole plan was to get 20 players, to take 20 players from the PGA Tour. And then the week of the Players' Championship, the signature event for the PGA Tour players, make the announcement of this tour. So to shove it up their asses as much as possible, they were going to make the announcement then. And that's only in 2 weeks. You have Honda this week, Bay Hill next week, and then the players. That was the plan. So then while all these people are gathering in Los Angeles last week for the Genesis at Riviera, people are starting to get asked about it, and they're essentially being asked to swear their loyalty to the tour. And a couple people wouldn't do it, Bryson as an example, but guys like Rory, Justin Thomas, and Rahm did swear their loyalty. And then on Sunday morning, it starts to percolate. And Dustin Johnson, one of the guys who's key on this, is somebody who won a Masters within the last couple of years and still young enough to have some relevance and, recent number one player in the world. He issues a statement. He's out. Then Bryson, a couple hours later, he's out. And then at that point, Rory McIlroy stomps on Phil and just shits on it and calls it egotistical and a variety of other adjectives. And even Justin Thomas, who's friends with Mickelson, distances himself from it. So now Mickelson's blowing in the wind. And then
he's on his own island. He's on an island alone.
And so that is how we got to yesterday. But that's just with the other players. With Mickelson, Shipnuck, who is the one who released this interview quote, is writing a book on him. It's an unauthorized biography. Clearly, they're in communication because Mickelson texted him to get on the phone in November about this thing, and Shipnuck picked up. So it's not like it's all out not talking to him. And Mickelson's book is expected to not portray him in a flattering light. Mickelson is not quoted in the book as it's been reported. And one of the things, and this leads to what you were saying, Jay, and so I'm setting you up for this, that is included in the book that then leads to what people are talking about, and not just like guys, operating, in Reddit comments,
Right.
But this was on, who's the guy? Who's Rich Lerner, right? That's the kind of the head guy.
Rich Lerner, I heard exactly what you heard.
Okay. He brought this, now I would put him in his 60s on the Golf Channel. And so he's kind of a statesman of sorts on that network. And he said Mickelson sold his private jet in 2019. And someone close to him said that's his most prized possession. And that was a flashing red light with regards to his financial health. And so that's how we get to people at this moment trying to compute some algebra as to what this whole thing was all about. Is he in financial disarray? And he needed that injection now because things are a mess, and getting out on the front end of the PR because this book's going to come out in a couple of months and it might detail how he got there. So with that all said, I wanted to bring people up to speed because I know not everybody's been paying attention to this, even though I think it's a story that's about to transcend the game of golf, potentially transcend sports. Jennings, your thoughts on all of that element?
Well, and then the other aspect about the Saudi Golf League is the Trump quest to try and get his name out there and trying to commit that, this guy's just trying to get attention more than, Balzer. It's unbelievable. It's no offense to H, but it's just really a scary situation. And I say scary for Phil because this could be truly a game changer in the way his legacy is, what his potential is down the road. I talked about the TV opportunities. I felt like it almost was like he knew KPMG was getting ready to pull him as a sponsor. So he came out and wrote the apology, if you will, apology, and basically said, any of my sponsors that want to step away, I understand. Again, this all seems to be very selfish. From the get-go. And, when you're trying to use, that's why I think the feeling of he was trying to make changes really to the tour has come and gone.
Right. That was the smokescreen for what the motivation was. So let's get into Mickelson because I've heard you talk about this before.
Yep.
I think that there is the casual fan observer of Mickelson and going, God, he is the greatest, as in the way he interacts, the thumbs up. Yep. Now I see the thumbs up and I'm like, this is the most smart ass thing going, but people just go, oh, this is great. He's giving the thumbs up and smiling, but it's just his way to kind of to play the game. There is the fuck I'm good, just ask me, Fig Jam nickname. And then I saw a reporter, and I said this on 101 today, and I can't recall who it was again, but he tweeted, he goes, I talked to a guy on tour, and they said, you guys are just starting to catch up with what we've all known for a long time.
Right.
At the same time, when he was on the pay-per-views and the matches, and he was in the booth with Nance, he was a natural. He does come off as likable, just certainly I don't know what the right word for, but he likes to be the smartest guy in the room and show that he can. And if anything, he would prefer to have a lob shot over a 40-foot tree as opposed to just a 130-yard shot in to show his genius. You've been out there, not to say that you've interacted with him a whole lot, but you've interacted with guys on tour. So for background purposes, your perception of him and the perception of the players on tour of him.
The perception of the players on tour for the most part. Now, some of the newer guys have seen maybe a different Phil a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the guys that played from, in the Tiger era along with Phil would tell you he's full of junk. A great player without question, but they don't believe the facade of this. And I've been there. I was at the '84 Lumber Classic, and why he was playing there, I don't know.
Where was the '84 Lumber Classic?
It was at the Nemacolin Woodlands Resort in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
They got on the tour schedule. The guy that owned '84 Lumber was the guy behind this whole deal and built this whole complex up there. And I saw Phil sign autographs for 45 minutes to an hour after the final round. I mean, just one after the other. I mean, but there were guys that felt like, well, he's just doing that to do it and this and that. I mean, I think that I'm afraid, and again, this is speculation, that either he's made some very bad financial investments or gambling may be getting the better of him. And he wouldn't be the first.
Yeah.
And again, that's speculation. But at this point, with the way he has gone about things and said and that weak ass apology or whatever that was, the statement was, we're at speculation.
Yeah, I look at him and I feel like his approval rating in a matter of a week has gone from, I don't know what it would have been. I think with a casual fan, so I'm talking about golf fans.
Sure, that watches the Masters.
Right. I would have thought that he was in the high 80s.
Yep.
After he won the PGA Championship in the 90s.
Yep.
Had he wanted to do it, he could play a little on the Champions Tour and sit next to Jim Nantz on CBS. It's not like Nick Faldo has people going, oh, this is the second coming. He could help that broadcast, certainly, and make $10 to $12 million working on CBS. And now, in a matter of a week, nobody's touching him, and he's going away. I don't know if it's a suspension and you just go, okay, we're going to call it I'm stepping away, or if he really is stepping away.
Right.
But nobody is touching him. Nobody is backing him. He is, as I said at the outset, persona non grata.
A guy that's been with him since he was recruiting him is Steve Loy, who is his agent. And, Loy and Tim Mickelson, have a relationship, and thus Rahm is involved.
Right.
And I really got the sense that when Rahm made it real clear, he wasn't part of this, that everybody wasn't on the same page. And, it's unfortunate. It's been weird because there've only been, little snippets of info. And like I said, nobody had officially said, I'm signed, sealed, and delivered to this Saudi league. And then the fact that one of the great egos of all time, Norman, is involved. I mean, couldn't he be on a yacht somewhere doing something with somebody's wife? Greg? I mean, it's.
Are we talking about a cock here?
I think it was just let's go. And I'm not sure it was just one. But I mean, and Saudi dough. I mean, I just in their name when they were naming all these players, I'm like, well, but none of them are saying they're in. Right. It's just like these names are popping up, and you wonder who was really behind all that.
Yeah.
Who was driving the information for the Saudi Golf League? Was it some rich Saudi dude, or was it Phil, or was it
Well, I heard Adam Scott on the No Laying Up podcast. I think he was on 3 weeks ago. Did either of you happen to listen to that?
I did not, but you know what I think is coming? Either guys are going to just be as upfront and out there as they can be, or they're not going to do interviews. I mean, they're not going to deal with podcasts and stuff like that. No matter what you think about the Phil
about this topic or just in general,
I think you're going to be extreme. I think this is going to be similar to when Tiger did the GQ interview and got burned. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's what happened here, because I don't think Phil is getting burned. I think Phil is getting exposed. But I think guys are going to be very cautious, even more so.
So, for example, I follow him on Instagram, and I was just scrolling through, and I saw Ian Poulter practice round at the Bear Trap. And considering Poulter was one of the names, not to say he talked about it, but I'm curious how he will handle it this week. I would imagine he'll get asked about it. Adam Scott's not playing it, but what Adam Scott said on No Laying Up is it is appealing to only play a limited schedule and still make that kind of money. And they were talking about 10 to 12 events.
Yep.
Some people have misunderstood that it was all going to be in Saudi Arabia.
No.
That's not the case. It was just going to be Saudi money that was going to fund it. I see a comment here, and it says, casual golf fan here, pretty quick fall from grace, not a Tiger Woods. Oh, look at Jackson with the graphics, Jennings.
Oh, my.
Look at this.
That boy a raise.
Look at that. Not a Tiger Woods banging loose women at a Strodian rate, drama-laced kind of fall, but a quick fall nonetheless. Your thoughts on how this compares and contrasts with Tiger Thanksgiving 2009?
Different, but I'm not sure. I mean, let's be honest. In a sense, Tiger has come back from that situation. It's still there. It's still wrong. It still broke my friggin' heart for no reason, because he's human. But, it didn't happen. And then even though his news conference wasn't very revealing or very,
you talk about Tiger's statement in front of
the statement on the Golf Channel with the pillars lined up there. And, it wasn't like he denied it. It wasn't like he was saying, no, there's none of this is going on. So, I mean, this is and as Tim put it, I think we're on the precipice
of something bigger,
of it being a worldwide story or something to that effect. Again, speculation, no knowledge of any of it, but just watching it and seeing the way things have gone in the past, even though we're in a new age with the digital media and all that stuff, it's very odd.
Well, you have a couple of things here, and I welcome people to interact as people are hopping on here. I can see
Jackson could put you on.
Yeah, Jackson could bring you right on, I guess. Are we on Instagram as well? That TMA_STL Instagram accounts?
Not currently, no.
Blowing up
on YouTube, Twitter, and on Facebook. Couple things that we're going to have here where Phil cannot. I mean, I guess he can, but I don't know if he would. Number one, you have Augusta National, and it's not that far away, which always puts me in a great state of mind to even think that way. But Phil is a defending champion. How does that go at the Champions Dinner? Is he going to play Augusta National? We thought Nance was all over Tiger on Sunday in the booth at Riviera. What about Phil playing Augusta National? And then, even though we may remember the PGA Championship as an August event around here because of Belle Reve in 2018, Mickelson won that thing at Kiowa in May. And so he will be defending his title, theoretically, at Southern Hills in May. How is that going to play? Because he just said he's going to step away. And not coincidentally, Jennings, mind you, that book was going to be released on Tuesday of the week of the PGA Championship. Yes. So how do you think that will play?
I mean, if he doesn't play Augusta, then it could be over. I'm not kidding you. I mean, there's no reason for him not to play Augusta.
Right.
Even if he's suspended by the PGA Tour, I will say.
So you do think there's a possibility that this is a suspension?
Oh, there's absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And again, they do not release that type of thing. I mean, they're controlled by Republican lobbyists. No offense to Republican lobbyists, but that's who controls the tour. Fincham was one after Beeman. But if he doesn't play Augusta, Tim, I mean, what's up?
Yeah.
I mean, did he all of a sudden he's just going to show up at the PGA to defend? I mean, there's some people think that we may not see him play again.
Really? That it could just be over, just like
Which is crazy. I mean, how can you say that? How could somebody say? I mean, how could Rich Lerner say we may have seen him play his last golf?
Yeah, and that's I saw that.
I mean,
last night. I want to read some of it because we're getting comments in here, and then Action Jackson, your thoughts. We talked a little bit about it on 101 today. Bryson deep down has to be loving Phil taking all the heat. Phil's best course of action is to pay Pat Reed to improve his lie at the next event. Well played. That is a nice. And P. Reed will be in the field this week at Palm Beach.
Yes, he is. I put him on my team.
Did you? My friend of mine just texted me and said the rough is looking extra thick this week at PG&E. I recognize this is probably from number 11, as a matter of fact. I guess they're growing it out, and that's going to be a brutal one. The news media seems to only have a problem with what Phil said about the Saudis, not the betrayal of the league. I would disagree with that unless because the person who posted that is saying news media. Maybe because, again, this story has transcended golf and sports. This is a story on take your pick of whatever news outlet you're accessing. It was on both CNN and Fox News, and it was on the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal. And, of course, it was on ESPN, and it's something everybody in the golf world is talking about. This was like breaking news, biggest story ever on Golf Channel last night. I disagree with the premise on the Saudi element, unless you're talking specific to the news media, and then that might be the case. But since I don't really watch the news anymore, I can't speak to that. Jennings, any thoughts? Jackson, any thoughts on that?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that was brought up today was, and Doug brought this up, and I think it's fair, if you're going to condemn golfers playing in Saudi Arabia, how can you not talk about the U.S. sending Olympians to China? And I think there's something, there's a discussion there, but I don't think that that's necessarily what golf fans are talking about today. I think golf fans are talking about, one of the golden boys of the game, and it doesn't even go back to 2000. It goes back to before 2000, in Phil Mickelson being, one of the most popular players in the game just a few days ago to now. I don't know when we'll see him again. And I think that's the difference. Yes, this person is clarifying they mean news media. Do you think that we will see something
similar? Jackson.
Yeah, I mean Jackson's on it with these graphics. I didn't know we had these kind of capabilities now. Yeah. Is this Jackson or is this Hubbard? I don't know.
Injection of the graphics department.
Jennings, I brought this up too today when we had this discussion on 101. And I don't know if people, especially people like in Jackson's generation, 23 years old, can realize this from, I don't know, I guess we can go back to 97. Certainly Jackson wouldn't remember that because he wasn't born yet. But 97, but in particular, maybe 2000 to his U.S. Open win at Torrey Pines in 2008.
Right.
Tiger Woods' approval rating that you saw at Augusta in 2019 was a totally different thing than the Tiger Woods approval rating that you saw from 2000 through 2008. In other words, contrary to what people think now, and potentially Jackson's generation and some of the people watching or listening to this, Tiger was polarizing for some fans, whether it be golf fans or otherwise, from 2000 through 2008. And what happened in 2009, 2010 was confirmation bias for those who hated him and go, see, I told you he was a shitty guy. Then when he came back from all of that and his surgeries and won the Masters,
everything's okay.
Everybody, yeah, okay. So you agree. So Tiger was not necessarily as popular as people who might not remember the early 2000s may think.
I remember when we started taking emails on Sirius XM. And some of the things I would see sent in about Tiger and the way we talked about him or this and that, it was bad. I mean, I'm not going to say 50-50, but I'll say 70-30. I'll say almost 70-30 because if you had a favorite player,
30 what? Liked him or disliked him?
70-30 liked him, 70% liked him,
Okay.
30%, as opposed to maybe 90-10 with the second or third go around.
Right.
Yeah, and Tim, I've talked about this before because I saw it in real time. I was telling my son the other day, we were talking about PGA National, and I once played in a card game with Phil at the PGA Junior Championship in 1986 at PGA National.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
So I've been around the guy, and you know, he's a fascinating case study. But in August of '96, Phil was on a Sunday. Phil was getting ready to win his fourth tournament of the year. Okay. Yeah. At that time, it was called the World Series of Golf in Akron at Firestone. That same Sunday, a guy named Tiger Woods was beating Steve Scott for his third straight United States amateur. And in a way, you know, that was a true changing, because Phil had become the young superstar on the PGA Tour and had filled his place. I mean, he'd been the best player for his age since he was 6.
Yeah.
So, and that's all this guy's known, is being the best player in the world for his age, except when Tiger was around.
Yeah, and then he was lumped in with the Tiger versus Phil thing, and Tiger certainly took control of that. But Tiger's popularity now is not what Tiger's popularity was when he was making that run. Mickelson, I feel like, experienced peak popularity at Kiowa.
Without
winning
question.
PGA Championship at 50 years old,
and it was a steady rise.
Right,
there was no drop. It was just as he continued. This is from the public view, not the players' point.
I agree with yes.
It just continued to rise, maybe not skyrocket, but just on a steady upward trend, and even maintained during a couple years where you wondered if it was over. And then, like you said, here comes the magic at Kiowa.
Yeah, the magic at Kiowa really was the culmination of his use of social media, the match, and those pay-per-views. And he dropped by the booth one time. Well, you want to talk about a cuck situation. He cucked this man. I mean, he just was basically roasting him, and clearly so good at it. Just an absolute natural. And now I wonder, if he will ever have that opportunity. I guess, the nature of things when somebody is the target of the social media outrage in any element is the apology is never good enough. But yesterday really wasn't much of an apology so much as it was either a denial or deflection. And so I don't know how he necessarily comes back from that particular thing unless he just comes clean with everything that's gone on. And whether he wants to or not, somebody's going to be writing about it, whether it's accurate or not. Again, I don't know, but I want to make it clear. And that's the thing I keep, because I know Alan Shipnuck, he could walk in here. I don't know who he is. I know his name.
You can take him.
For the people who follow baseball, I know that around here, it's certainly gonna be a lot larger than golf. He's Ken Rosenthal. He's a credible guy. He's not like a gossip columnist.
He's an insider.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this book was scheduled to come out, and still is likely to scheduled to come out a couple of days before the PGA Championship. Any questions, comments you may have, feel free. I have some here in the email inbox. In addition to, Michael Wellington texting me, recovering alcoholic from Belleville and Webster Groves will be very happy. He just wants to know the date of the Dotem. And for the record, for those of you now watching, May 19th and May 20th at Normandy. And we will have quite a pony. Lisa Ann's flight, Jennings, booked. Lisa Ann's flight, booked. She's flying in to St. Louis on Wednesday afternoon, and she is flying out on Saturday. So she is going to be here for Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday night.
Pony.
It's going to be an absolute pony. I cannot wait. For those of you interested in registering, I know that they're going to give right of first refusal to foursomes to people who sponsor, so that would be a way in if you are not sure you're going to get in. Let's see what else we've got in here on this. Let me take a look here. All right, questions coming in on the topic. Guys, if Tiger and Phil are not around in 5 years on the PGA Tour, who do you think replaces them as the face of the game? Jennings, I'm curious what you think on that.
Well, I don't
You can't get to that level. I mean, those guys were in two different levels. I mean, Tiger obviously was. I don't know. Maybe Phil, you wouldn't put.
Yeah,
Phil.
but Phil, for a large, if there was a second face, it was Phil. I mean,
Right.
and a pretty strong one. I think the best player over the next 5 years will be Rahm. How much of the face he'll be, I don't know. I'm not sure. That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know that Rahm necessarily wants to be. He may become that because of the success. You wonder, JT, and JT's had some baggage with him too. The stuff he set out at Hawaii last year.
Right.
I don't know. That's an excellent. I mean, I'd say it may be Rahm because of the success. I don't know that. I mean, it could be Dustin Johnson. I mean, he could win three Grand Slams this year.
How about I fire one here that you haven't mentioned yet, and then
Colin Morikawa.
That's where I was going to go. Yeah.
I mean, 2 years, 2 majors. Solid for the most part. Almost every time he gets in the heat. Great demeanor. Doesn't seem to be a lot of negative with him, and will smile, unlike Cantlay. Resting bitch face. When you make a birdie, smile.
Jackson, who would you put, especially as a young
guy?
Gentleman. Who would you
to
go?
To me,
with?
it's easier than it seems. It's Brooks and Bryson.
Well, I don't see Brooks Koepka as. I don't think Brooks Koepka. Like, for example, this weekend, Jennings. I mean, he's playing in the. First off, he's playing in the Honda. In my opinion, only number one, he lives there, and number brother. Two, they give an exemption to his brother
in the field. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you sit there if you're building out rosters, and you go, okay, if he wanted to, if this were the PGA Championship, there, different deal. But it's this thing which has become kind of a,
I'll just play.
Yeah, 3M deal, and I'll go back on the boat with Jenna, and we'll, fuck off if the water.
Unless he gets off, and makes a couple birdies.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I saw him at Genesis Torrey, and he missed a couple putts, and I'm like, he's tapping out, and you just can see it right away. I just don't think he could ever do it, because I don't think that's his demeanor. And I certainly don't think it's DeChambeau, because part of being the guy is either you're so dominant that your personality doesn't matter, see Tiger initially, or the personality makes up for the fact that you're not necessarily dominant, see Phil. And I just don't think Bryce something's just a little off there,
Bryson's going to be the lightning bolt. I mean, again, the planets could align, the wind could be right, the rough could be low, and he's figured out, along with the Pythagorean theorems, that this is where to put it, and he has that week, and he wins by 7, and maybe it's a major.
My thing with him isn't that, because I'm thinking that there just might be something a little off there, which would make it difficult for him, which is why guys like to give him shit, and which people are kind of like to Brooks Koepka, like, dude, you're picking on like the nerd. I mean, just
right.
You don't pick up the, but whatever I think he could deal with some health issues. I know he's dealing with it now, but I mean, trying to build himself and successfully building himself into what he's built himself into. I just wonder what the longevity of that is, with the twisting and turning. People I see in the chat have brought up Rory. I don't know, man. It's been a while since he's won a major.
Yeah. It was his back in like 2014 and 15. It was all his.
Yep.
And he kind of let it go.
And that's why, I don't know. I mean, is Rory going to win another major? That's a serious question.
Yeah, that's
my favorite player.
I mean, 5 years ago, I was greenside when Ricky Fowler won the Honda, and you felt like it's a matter of time before he wins a major. And now I think people would go, does he even win another tournament, much less major?
Right.
So some of these guys who 5 years ago, you had the boys on the spring break trip, and you felt like they were invincible. And Justin Thomas is really at this moment the one who you would say. I mean, if Spieth has his driver working, he can do anything.
He can't hit a fairway,
but he can't hit a fairway, and so that's an issue. Smiley Kaufman playing in Monday qualifiers. You know, I mean, God bless him. I'd love to play in a Monday qualifier, but what happened to him? Do you know anything about what happened? First thing guys like you will say, hard game. So I recognize that.
I mean,
something happened because he was on the tour at a young age, and now he's Monday qualifier.
I don't know. I mean, I have not heard anything on Smiley.
Somebody said Morikawa and Xander is the faces. We haven't brought up Xander.
And Xander is a guy. Again, I mean, we talked about Spieth not being able to drive. Xander has got to be able to putt. I mean, and
when holes get tight, when you're in the mix at Augusta, for example, as we saw.
But he could be a guy. I mean, there's I understand where Jackson's coming from with Bryson, but Bryson is too much disliked or misunderstood to be
right. And a little bit of my reasoning behind that is a lot of the guys we've mentioned are, and maybe this is just because I grew up a lot around them, but just like golf guys, like guys who are really good, and they're not particularly interesting off the course.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's all of them, but those two, Brooks with his like, I shouldn't be here, I should be playing football or baseball attitude, and Bryson, like the super weird guy,
right?
For whatever reason, attract people because they're a little different.
I agree with that. I don't know if Koepka has, and Dustin Johnson for that matter. I could be off on this. It might be just totally narrative, but watching it and having made money on, and poker and body language. God, if I can live bet after seeing Brooks Koepka play a couple holes on what he's going to do, I would do it, and I'd be right more often than I'd be wrong, because you can tell whether or not he's into it or not. And if I can watch it tomorrow with the Honda Classic, I'll know within a couple of holes if he's there to just check the box or if he's there to try to get his world golf ranking back up. And Dustin Johnson, I mean, hey, Jennings, I mean, Dustin Johnson's approaching 40. So that's not something that, that's just the reality of it with a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, in theory, and I've felt like this has been coming, and Phil was justifying it, that because guys are being able to hit the ball further at an older age, that they may be able to stick around a little longer.
Yeah.
However, I also think
you have to care to put into the work to be able to stay in that state, and that's what I wonder with him.
Absolutely, you do. And I mean, look at the Bernard Langer winning on the Champions Tour again at
55 years old.
I mean, but I wonder as well, motivation. I mean, at what point, if you've got 140 million in a bank account, which some of these guys are going to have when they're 45. Especially the Dustin and the Brooks that sometimes look like they could give a rat's ass what's going on.
Right. I mean, that's the issue with those guys. Anytime you're building out lineups, I'm like, God, does he fucking care this week? I know he plays well at Riviera, but God, he doesn't. He doesn't care. And then that's the handicapping element. You have to have the guy who's consumed with it. Bryson is consumed with it. Anytime you ask guys who are around the game or actually in it.
Yep.
Even if they're like, yeah, the guy's a goofball, but I respect the fact that he did what he did, and so they respect that he, turned himself into this weightlifting phenom. But can you continue to do that over the years? And what is he in his late? I think he's 28-ish,
28 or 9,
give or take. Rahm would be the guy talent-wise.
Yeah.
At the moment, but like you said, can he be the face in the U.S. that would get people really fired up? And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I agree with you, Jackson. If you're talking about Bryson health-wise and Brooks, that would be great. And Koepka did dominate majors for back-to-back years, and maybe we'll see it come back. I don't know. I feel like, it's been percolating. He was in the mix at the Waste Management a couple weeks ago. So maybe it is there. I'm legitimately, there isn't a whole lot when it comes to storylines this weekend at the Honda. I think a random will win it.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious. The one thing I actually am anxious to see is how Brooks Koepka treats the event. Speaking of which, and then we'll wrap this thing up here, Jennings. For your lineups, because I'm gonna be sitting down and building out like 100 100 lineups here over the next. We had a big week last week. Tam Avenue Capital Partners, actually. We
Nice.
doubled our money, and we were in the mix to win the whole thing up until Morikawa made his run. Anybody you like this weekend? I like to have these conversations with you. You tend to be hot, and you beat Iggy's roster with your Joaquin Neiman, Martin Laird.
The magic pick. I'm a listener. I watched the show this morning on YouTube. I'm with you on Sam Ryder.
Yeah, kind of a sneaker play at 7,200 or 7,300 on DraftKings.
I kind of went a little top heavy with a couple of guys. Here's my oddball one: Danny Willett, 7,000.
Wow,
and it's wow. He made.
Go get an ownership projection for you. I would imagine we're talking about one.
That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah. In most of the games I play now, if 5 get the cut, you're going to cash. Just
Yeah.
And Willett's my guy to say if he doesn't make the cut, okay, hopefully my other 5 guys do, because I think he'll be low owned. This is a shorter. I'm going to say shorter in proportion to some of the real big boy golf courses these guys play. He made the cut at the last tournament he played over in Saudi, which was a week DP Tour field. But this week is so weird that if you have one guy that gets you some points that nobody else has got, that could be a big thing. So
last week I put Neiman on 25 of 38 rosters.
Huge.
So, there wasn't much of a sweat there. I just had to fade Morikawa on Sunday, and he of course went on a heater. But we had Neiman, Scott, Thomas, Hovland as the core, and they were at the top of the leaderboard. So we were legitimately
strong.
Willett is projected to have 0.78% ownership.
Really?
By the way, so if you have him and he hit, you will have 99.22% leverage on the field if he were to hit. The highest owned, I'll just give some people some information, and thank you for tuning in. So you get some information here that I have to pay for, but you will get. Who do you think is the highest owned, Jennings? Projected.
Daniel Berger.
Third highest owned. Jackson, you want to venture a guess?
I'll just go with the highest priced player, Sanjay M.
That's a good guess this week. It's a good guess. It is not, though. I would have thought that would have been it, actually. That would have been my guess, knowing he plays well there and has won there 2 years ago. Billy Horschel. Billy Ho.
Billy Ho. I can see it. Florida guy.
27% is what I'm seeing here.
Been playing decent. Yeah, I could see that. Let me ask you about one guy. Let me get some free information.
Sure, I'm happy. You did the podcast, so let me pay you back.
Hold on. I'm pulling it up right now. Come on,
defending champion Matt Jones is at 8%. Not that anybody necessarily knows who he is. Iggy's guy last week, Patrick Rogers, at 7%.
Keith Mitchell,
who I saw hit a beautiful wedge in before he hit the the tournament-winning putt, to keep out of a playoff with Ricky Fowler and Brooks Koepka in 2019. Keith Mitchell, Jennings, he's up there.
Yeah,
18.81% is what I'm seeing. Now this is not. This is a projection. This isn't
right.
This isn't gospel. This thing
was tied into DraftKings
big time last week, if I'm not mistaken. I guess a lot of people wound up being on Dustin Johnson. I think that's the one that shocked people last week was how highly owned he was. It wasn't expected to be that way. So these are projections. They're not by any means gospel. But if you're playing this stuff, one of the important things to do is to pick players who aren't going to be highly owned. Otherwise, you're just building out chalk lineups. And at that point, you're basically competing with Doug's Lancome box, and that's it.
Hey, you don't do double ups, do you?
No, with the guys putting money in, we're not looking to double up. We're looking to try to hit a lottery ticket once in our lives. That's
and I understand. I noticed a guy last week, and I just did a $5 double up game, and he had 20 lineups. The guy spent 80 bones, and they were all the same lineup. All 20 were the same lineup.
I follow that. Yeah, I think I've done something like that before.
Yeah, you'd have to get on a roll, or you just have to say, you know what, maybe you say I'm gonna go 3 weeks in a row. I'm just gonna roll everything.
Well, here's the thought process behind that.
Yeah,
that it's like if I were to sit down in a poker tournament and it's online and it's a $5 buy-in versus a $100 buy-in. Now, it doesn't mean that a $100 buy-in is going to exclusively have better players.
But the theory is
you're likely to run into a better caliber of player at the $100 level as opposed to the $5 level. It's not lock, but again, operating on probability. And so for this guy, I'm theorizing he's going, okay, I'm going to put in basically $100, $80.
Yep.
And as opposed to doing an $80 buy-in tournament, I'll enter, X number of rosters in this one, and it'll just be the same roster. And if I hit, I'll double up the same amount of money as I would at an $80, but I might be playing against easier competition at the $5.
Sure. Yep.
So I think that's the thought process on that. Now, I want to make this clear with regards to game theory on DFS. If you're just playing the double ups, you don't give a shit if you have high owned players or not.
No, you're just trying to get the points.
Yeah. But what we play are the GPPs, which are those tournaments. And in order to have leverage, you got to hit on a Danny Willett, know. Last week we were big on Munoz as kind of a random one.
Sebastian.
He wound up being solid, but Neiman was only owned by I think between 12 and 15%. And you just got to take stands.
What's he at this week off the W?
Let me take a gander. What do you think he's at, Jennings? And then I'll give you the number.
Again, if you think about it, this one would hold up to you never play the winner, especially since you're talking about totally different grasses.
Yeah.
You're talking about a totally different feel. 10?
He is projected at 14.18%.
Okay.
He is actually the second highest owned Chilean in the field. There's some hinting for those of you who are constructing lineup.
It's a tough call on the field.
Yeah. This is a week where I'll, not that anybody gives a shit what I'm doing because it's not like I've won, but I will likely have half the rosters we build out not having any of the quote unquote big names, and by big names I mean guys who
the highly priced.
Yeah, anything above, Tommy Fleetwood's like the 5th highest or 6th highest owned player this week. That tells you a lot.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, priced player. Son JM, Louis Oosthuizen, Joaquin Niemann, Daniel Berger, Koepka, and then you get Tommy Fleetwood, a guy who's really struggled, at least stateside, and then it drops off to Horschel. Lowry hasn't played in a while, even though he certainly could be a value. He hasn't played in a while, and then you get to Alexander Noren and Matthew Wolff and Keith Mitchell. That just shows you how weak.
Matthew Wolff's another guy that can't hit a whole lot of fairways.
That's a guy who. It's funny. I was playing with a friend of the program, Adam Long, who is fading this week. By the way, even though he lives for real, dead serious.
Right,
if he's 5 minutes from there, it's Long. I know exactly. Where he lives right with Corey Connor, where Corey Connors used to live, and Mackenzie Hughes, and they live 2 minutes from the PGA entrance. But a lot of guys don't like to play the course. It's a tough course to get up and down, and it comes right in the middle of Riviera, and then Arnold's event, and then the Players. So it's schedule wise, it's brutal. But Matthew Wolff got a house at a course that I would play down there called East Point, but never really lived there. And then I think he sold it because he's like, yeah, I'm living down here. I'm 21 years old, but I'm basically living in like a retirement community. And then he kind of talked about it when he came clean, when he was dealing with some, mental health issues, and said, yeah, I kind of messed up. I went from being in a college atmosphere in Stillwater to a retirement community. And I remember going by his house and they're like, yeah, that's Matthew Wolff's house. We don't know if he's ever been in it. He's just doing it for tax purposes.
Yeah, there's a guy, if he could find some fairways.
That's a guy that's the thing. That's the way to do this. If you're playing tournaments, not the double ups, is to do something that feels uncomfortable with regards to putting a player on and then taking a stand. And you just have to do it. And, 2 weeks ago, I think I had Rahm on 100% of our rosters just to go, okay, he's going to be owned by 30%. So I got to have leverage on the field. We'll have leverage.
We'll go somewhere else.
And if he has a bad week, we're absolutely fucked. Jennings, I've enjoyed it. We've done an hour. I think that's more than enough, especially giving you about 15 minutes notice that we were doing it. Enjoyed BSing with you. Thank you to all the sponsors who make this possible. I saw Ryan Kelly. He was in the building today.
Good man.
HomeLoanExpert.com. Jennings, what did you think of the building? You have a week of Hubbarding under your belt. What was your
I liked it. I mean, it's a real radio station. It's a real, it's a real entity.
I was having lunch yesterday at Il Balago, which is right, the restaurant
right
there,
better.
at the station. Yeah, a couple of those guys, the brothers own that restaurant, and guy goes, you think there's any way you guys could have Jay in as a full-time guy? I go, you have no idea how much we've talked about that. So maybe someday, Jennings, someday soon. It would be
this season, come see me at Sullivan and tee it up, and I'll be messing around with these boys. Always good to be on with you. Let me ask one question about.
Go ahead, pose your query.
Angry and the cigarettes. So Jackson, was he out front?
No, he was.
Why wasn't he out front? Because that's where he goes.
Well, I've noticed coming in, he'll be greeting me sometimes at this loading dock.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know why. I don't know why he's diversified his smoking locations, but because Jackson and I are the only full-time members of the show, Jennings.
Yes.
At least at this moment, who get the emails. Doug hasn't set his up.
Good move by Dougie.
And Plowboy hasn't set his up. So I didn't know that. And I saw the email, and I think I was in studio with Jackson at 2 p.m. a couple days ago.
Was it a staff email?
When it was a staff email from City Place talking about a recent problem with smoking. And I said to Jackson, I go, uh-oh, I have a feeling I know who this is directed to. Yeah. And then Jackson yesterday goes, the Courtney show was talking about us, and somebody sent me the audio, and I'm like, oh boy, we've only been there for 2 months, and we're already.
You can take the angry to Hubbard, but you can't take the angry out of Iggy.
So I think I saw he posted an Instagram video, not necessarily happy, kind of like when I get my son to wash his hands, he will pout about it for 5 minutes, but he'll do it. Iggy was down in the proper smoking location, which I guess is like in some wartime shelter or something. That's where Jackson parks. So that's what he's got going on. Jennings, I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
to Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Thank you to James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency, Jamie Burkhardt of Munganess, St. Louis Acura, and Alton Toyota, Seth Goldcamp of Design Air Heating and Cooling, Tim Burkhardt of William Grant and Sons, and Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies. For Action Jackson and our special guest this week, Jennings Randolph Jr., I'm Tim McKernan. This has been another edition of QFTA on the Tim McKernan Show podcast.